What the hell is going on? Such a dumb game. Bro, stupid, dumb. Bro, what are you doing? What? Bro, it's 11 o'clock. People are sleeping. Bro, I don't care, bro. They lost, bro. It's only one game. One game. Yeah, bro, but still, bro. The way they played, bro, that wasn't the Warriors, bro. That was something else. Bruh.
Patterson, no thoughts of anything expensive from him. 5 seconds left. There's the siren. They won't even have time to play it. Patterson celebrates and the Warriors are off to the grand final.
Man, what a way to finish off the game and what a way to bring them into the grand final. Dills, Willie, we're back again. Bro, how good. First year into the pathways, Harold Matts into a grand final. No expectation from most probably the outside looking in, but all the expectation inside for those boys to go on and, hey, they're in the grand final.
Expectations and belief, Blair.
Yeah.
You can see how they've grown as the competition's gone on, and probably some of those expectations not to get there were in the opposition as well.
Yeah.
Now we'll get these new blokes, the new kids on the block, we'll knock them off, but they've surprised everyone, and what an achievement. Full congratulations to the players and the staff and to the club. It's a huge, huge achievement getting to any grand final.
Yeah.
And for these young fellas, what a wonderful experience to represent the club and get there in their first time of asking.
Yeah, and the pathways, like you said, Willie, the pathways have just kicked off this year for the Warriors, and the Harold Matts are in, the SG are back for the second year again. 21's Flag are in there, and obviously our New South Wales and NRL team. But again, like we just said, to have your first year in the competition and not knowing where you're going to go, and especially for the coaches, it's most probably unfamiliar positions for them as well. But dreamt big, achieved little milestones on the way. Got very lucky in the season. There is a top six in this competition. You have to be in the top six, and the team that played above them and below them, they were in the middle, drew. So they drew for our boys to go into the sixth position and have just taken every game in their stride and played some quality football. I think there's some quality players through there, and it's just a great success story for not only the coaches but some of these players as well, but also opens up opportunities for our next generation of kids coming through as well. And I think that, well, the pathways are up and running. How good.
100%. And over the course of a season, you've got to have a few things go your way.
Yeah.
And if the other teams draw or lose, you've got to be ready to pounce, and that's what they've done. They've taken the opportunities that have presented to them. And not only that, just to get into the six, they've knocked the teams off that they've had to and get ready for the big day on Saturday afternoon at Combank. It's a big step up because some of these other clubs that have had Harold Matthews before,
Definitely.
some of their teams would have been second years.
Yes.
So they've experienced some of this. This Warriors side, this is the biggest step up for these young guys' career for their first chance to get at it. So, yeah, they're going to take a lot of confidence going forward, but it's also going to be amazing for recruitment purposes that we're going to have a successful Harold Matthews for the next crop coming through.
The Bulldogs team, 9 straight games won. They get the first week off, and then they've got to play against the Warriors, who consistently, and I guess for us, for our young kids, we need to be playing consistent football to be able to compete with the Aussie teams. And like we've both said, this is our first year into that comp, and some of those clubs over in Australia have really good pathways, hence the Magpies, Penrith Panthers, and obviously now the Bulldogs. But for our boys to go over there and do a job, obviously shows that the coaching or the direction of where they want to go is really good.
And it also shows, for mine, that the game, with the Warriors being successful, the Kiwis having success last year, is healthy all the way through.
Yeah, definitely. So massive congratulations to the Harold Matts boys and all the staff involved, and also the Warriors and the club in general. Hey, but quickly, I was down at a Māori tournament, one of 5 big tournaments that they have in Aotearoa in New Zealand, and this is one of the first ones that they have every year in Rotorua, the Teina Tournament, which I'm involved in the Hokianga team. So I'm not the coach, I'm the assistant coach. My son plays in there, and I wanted to be around to help guide him on his journey as well. And I guess, you know, from my point of view, it's always a well-run competition or tournament. A lot of teams, both 13s and 14s, and some really talented players down there. Scouts everywhere. I guess an age that a lot of scouts are looking for, that 14-year-old age bracket, because you're not actually can get signed from an agent then, but you can kind of prep them into that 15 stage and try and sneak in there before you get. So for me, outstanding tournament. You ever been to a Māori tournament?
No, I haven't.
Yep.
No, I haven't. There was, I left a little while ago,
Yep.
but since I've come back, I've been able to indirectly be involved in the PYC,
Yep.
the
Yep.
Pacific Youth Cup, and setting up these types of tournaments gives these kids the opportunity to play at a level that they otherwise wouldn't get to.
Yep.
And they've got to be put in that intense environment to harden themselves up.
Yep.
And as you say, it's a wonderfully run tournament.
Yep.
It's outstandingly run by the organisers, by the parents and everyone. And it sounds like the kids and some of the talent are getting better year on year.
Yeah, so I was really, proud and happy for our Hokianga team. Quite a small team, but big in heart. We got knocked out in the semi-finals against a strong Wellington team. So massive congratulations to those guys. They went straight through to the final and played against a tough Brisbane, Australia team who have come over this is their second year over, the first year over, pretty much pumped all the teams. No one could score a try. This year, really competitive in that 14 age bracket. So that Wellington team, man, scouts. I don't want to tell too many scouts, but hey, look at those fellas because there's some quality standing down there. But we're talking about Hokianga.
Before you go over there, did you actually have anything like that when you were younger, Adam? Did you have any age grade stuff coming through?
No, so I didn't play too much rugby league growing up as a kid. So these tournaments are perfect for kids that are chasing dreams, especially if you're Māori. You get an opportunity to play, and it gets really competitive when it gets to the 14, 15-year-olds. So I guess I left home when I was 15, so I took my opportunities in Australia. But these are great for our local talent. So, it's great for the kids to be involved in. It's a great, well-run tournament. Our families are all down there. You got nice weather. It is a bit chilly down at Rotorua, but, man, Puketewhero Park is awesome for all these things. So, so it's awesome. But, hey,
Speaking of Hokianga, as you were saying.
Hokianga and awesome, how awesome the signing of James Fisher-Harris. And I know it's been crazy and it broke the internet last week, and then his performance as well the other night for the Panthers and scoring a try, man. Is it big things to come for the Warriors for sure?
I tried not to overstate it or understate it last week when the news came out, but it's the biggest signing, I think, for the Warriors' history. To get someone of his calibre, Kiwi captain, Golden Boot winner, grand finals galore, 28.
Yeah.
And to get him at that ripe age, and as a front rower, he's got his best years ahead of him. That's ridiculous to say for someone who's achieved so much and what he's done already. But I don't think it is understating that he is the best signing the Warriors have made in their 30-odd years.
Crazy. It's massive. It broke the internet, and I think everyone was in a little bit of disbelief because no one thought it was real. So the news travels really quickly in rugby league, and people are going, hey, have you seen this? Have you heard this? And I'm thinking, hold on a minute, let me just go through all the social media and try and find the NRL and Channel 9, looking at the date. Yeah, no, it's not April Fool's, so we're all good. But like you said, I think arguably the best signing in the Warriors' history. I think what he can bring to the club on and off the field, not only for the players that he's going to be playing with, but our young development in the front row, the Zion Moes, Jacob Labens, those kind of guys, but his professionalism as well. He's a leader, and obviously led New Zealand to winning the Pacific Championship against Australia, and it's just being able to have someone of his calibre in our own backyard. But the confidence he's going to bring to those boys in the pathways, but also the team. Man, when you look at Adam Whanua-Blake and you look at James Fisher-Harris, I'm sure at one stage there, the Warriors sort of, how are we going to fill this gap? And I know they missed out on Braden Hanunuali.
Yep.
Maybe a blessing in disguise because you get James Fisher-Harris.
And probably costs a little bit more as well, but the investment will be worth it. Not just for what, as you're saying, not just for what he gives on the field, but what he offers off the field and his leadership, his professionalism, and what he's going to be able to teach by how he lives
Yeah.
and how he works every single day, it's going to be infectious. Because of the success he has, the other young fellas watching him live and breathe professionally, they're going to have to toe that line to see this is how I need to get to where he is.
So not too many of the brothers come out of the hokianga. Kia ora, and they both fish from Kohu, which is a little bit bigger than where I grew up in Pangaru, a little bit bigger, but man, like for the people back home,
awesome.
It's a great achievement for what he's done for the game so far. And like you said, 28, he's coming to the prime of his career for a front rower. And those kids that aspire to be like James from the north, that want to go on a journey and chase a journey, he's the prime example of someone that's worked his butt off to get to where he is. 3 premierships, played in 4 grand finals, won a Pacific Championship, man. It's crazy what he's done already.
For him personally as well, he's finally getting to move home after, I think it's been 10 to 12 years that he's been over there. No, not
he went over at 15 too, I think.
Yeah, so that's a long time that he's been away, and now he's getting to come back. I remember talking to him once. I've met him, and
nice.
He's big on his leadership values for his family. So now he's coming back to be with his family. How would that feel for him?
Well, it's also the culture connection, culture to home. He's got 2 kids and 1 on the way. In a similar situation to myself when I first come back home, is that you want to bring your kids up in a culture that's familiar in their culture. So it's great for the kids. It's great for him. He still wants to be connected to culture as well. I'm sure James would say it himself. He's not really close to that right now. But by coming home, being a part of the Māori All-Stars, being part of New Zealand, you're getting that little bit of taste of what it is. And I know he's tight with his whānau up in Coke, so it's great that he can come home and bring his family home. And, man, what a signing that is for the Warriors. I think, man, I can't wait to have him back here at the Warriors.
No, I mean, you talk about how young he was when he left, and part of the reason he did leave was the knockback that he got at the Warriors to start with, and he didn't get an opportunity there. And it's interesting to read this week that that's always been a bit of fuel for him. That's been a drive for him in his career to prove the Warriors wrong, but to get back, and say they missed out, and the Warriors understand now what they've missed out on, but he gets to come back and live his dream out, but also give back not only to the club, but to the community. I'm definitely he'll do that as well.
Who knocked him back? Far out. The person that knocked him back straight up, bro. Like, again, hindsight, This is hindsight, and you're not going to keep everyone here in New Zealand, and you're going to let some slip through the gap. And James is one, Dylan Brown is another. There's a couple of guys that have gone on and done really well.
Yeah, Sean Kenny Downs, Peter Hiku, those kids. Yeah. There's a whole list. You can't keep them all. You can't do that, but you also don't have a crystal ball that you can try. You got to make those assessments, and that's where the recruiters make or break their money.
Beautiful.
From a real exciting homecoming, I know we're all excited to see Fish back, but there's some sad news. It's been now confirmed that Joey Manu is leaving to Japan at the end of this season. So I just wanted to ask, because we didn't talk about it last week when we talked about this, but Joseph Suali'i, he is also meant to be leaving at the end of the season to rugby as well. Is there going to become a trend again of people leaving to rugby at all? Like 2 of the Roosters boys leaving, their team might be a bit damaged. Is it going to become a trend again that people leave to rugby?
Well, I think we spoke about Joseph Manu last week, and it was just rumours there, but then I think it confirmed that afternoon or the next day. I guess it's an opportunity to go over and take up a challenge, but I'm also thinking that the money's really good in Japan. I don't know how well the quality is getting better because there's a lot of All Blacks, Wallabies all over there. So the competition is obviously a strong competition. You get to travel around. He's got a young one now, so your focus kind of shifts from, this is my life, rugby league or rugby union, and now that whatever you do, you're supporting your family. So he's gone on to make a decision around going after a challenge and a dream. I don't know if he'll play for the All Blacks, but I know that they'll be knocking on the door and letting him know, hey, if you go well over there might be an opportunity. I think there's rules around all the things now that they can't come back and play, but I don't really know too much in depth about that stuff because not even our game anyway. But, Joseph Manu Suali'i, man, two quality players that will be sorely missed in the game. Like, they bring talent, they bring X factor, they bring excitement. You know, kids in Tokoroa, and they look up to Joseph Manu, and the things that he does back home, down there. And I know every time he comes back for Kiwis, he goes down there and puts a training session on for himself and encourages kids to come along. Those are the things we're going to miss.
Yeah, and this has been going on either way for a long time. You know, we were taking All Blacks, and Matthew Ridge, John Kerwin came to rugby league, and rugby league players are going to go. The lifespan of a professional sportsman is only so long. So you can't begrudge someone for trying to maximise their earning power in whatever sport. We're going to lose two superstars in those two, and I can understand Joseph Suali'i going to rugby union. He's got a dream. He played union at school and had, however big it was, an ambition to play for the Wallabies, and he's chasing that. So I'm sure he'll be young enough to come back. Joey Manu, I'm sure he'll come back to the Roosters at some stage. But regardless, as I say, this has been going on for a while, and we've always been able to find the replacement. We've always found the next superstar. We've unearthed somebody come through. You know, I go back, when Andrew Johns retired, we never thought there'd be a halfback like him. And then we got Jonathan Thurston. He retired, there'll never be anyone like him. Now we've got Nathan Cleary. Somebody else comes along. You know, we're going to lose some superstars for right now, and it's going to hurt. But until we unearth that next one in the next year or two, then we're wishing them all the best.
Just before we move off the signings, Ethan Strange, just so everyone knows, he's got some Māori in him, eh?
Oh, yo.
He's got a bit of Māori in him. Yes, we have already identified the bro a long time ago, watching him in the pathways and stuff like that. Mate, I think he's come along really well this year. I know that one of my assistant coaches tipped me up about this kid, how he's going to have a solid season. He's a great player. So I think that's a really great signing for the Canberra Raiders, man. If they can keep him there long term, I think he's been tough for them. He defends well. He's sharp. He's got good skill. Someone to hopefully we can try and get him in the Māori system, because I know his dad was part of the women's space. Also, his sister plays in the Māori team too. So an opportunity there to, bring some more
feel
people
free
in.
to keep gassing him up, because the next thing we got to talk about is Jamal Fogarty.
Yes.
Is actually injured and out for probably around 3 months.
Yeah.
So I reckon Ethan Strand's going to have a big burden on his shoulders now to start really leading the team in a way.
Yeah, man, I think Jamal Fogarty's been a big part of the Canberra Raiders' success, and I think this year for sure. And his kicking game, a bit like your Sean Johnsons, your Adam Reynolds, your Mitch Moses, most probably one of the four best kicking games in the comp when it comes to long kicks and putting them in corners. Some big expectations now go on to Ethan Strange about how he can control the team, and they've got some young kids coming through there. Yes, most probably, I guess it's a baptism of fire. You've got to put them in there. They're running out of young, experienced halves. But Ethan Strange has got his hands full now. But again, it's be tough to see how Canberra go without him. I think he's been a key part to their success this year.
Yeah, there was a big question in the pre-season who was going to take Jack Whiten's spot in his absence, and who was going to step up and be with Jamal Fogarty. And I think Fogarty, to his credit, took that as an opportunity to really step up and run the team, and that's what he's done at this early stages. And I've been really interested and pleased with, I suppose, his growth since he left the Gold Coast, and now he's gone to the Raiders and stepped up into that leadership role. The young fella's got to do that now. Strange has been the one to be given that jersey, step into that mantle. He's also going to need some help from the Jordan Rapinas and the Josh Papali'is and those people, the senior ones around him, who are going to help him on the field. But he'll come out of this experience a lot better for it, no doubt.
Because his profile is a lot different from what Fogarty's been doing to start the season. It's more, the two of them have been more like a Mitch Moses and a Dylan Brown.
Yeah.
So now that I guess he'll play 7 maybe, but I don't know. It's going to be tough, but good chance for him to step up. And then the other injury.
Big news, this one.
Sad news, man. I love Ponga, but he's out he's also out for 3 months with a
Liz Frank, eh?
Liz Frank.
Yeah, Liz Frank.
You
Yeah.
know a lot about that.
I've had one of my only injuries was a Liz Frank, and that was early on in my career. So it is about a 3-month recovery period, and you're in a boot for most probably 8 weeks of that. So you're not really doing much. And because it's on your foot, you're always on your feet. You want to be able to rest it, but you can't really do too much. So you want to take the pressure off it as much as you can by wearing a moon boot. This is crucial. This is, again, I said that if he stays healthy and he's on the field, he wins Dally M, again. But the issue for me now is where do the Newcastle Knights go without Kalen Ponga? It just means they've got some guys that need to step up around the halves and around the hookups, the roles, because, man, without Kalen Ponga, I just don't see them kicking on now.
Yeah, I'm with Blair. I just think he's the one-man team. And without him, they lack direction or as a defensive line, he's their fear factor.
Yeah.
When he's bringing the ball back or he's got the ball in his hands, you worry. And because you worry, he takes the attention of 3 and 4 defenders, which creates space for others. Without being disrespectful to the others, they don't have that threat. They don't have that threat, and they're going to have to play a more team game and without him. But, yeah, he's a massive loss. He's a massive loss to the Knights. He's a massive loss to Queensland for this year's Origin. But, yeah, Liz Frank, it's a dicey one. It's a dodgy one. I've known a couple of players to have it. I never had one myself, but I know in the UK, Benny Roberts really, really struggled with it for a long time. But I've no doubt he'll get the right medical attention and be back as soon as he can. And but like last year, he might come back and still play a couple of games and win the Dally. Who knows? He's a freak.
Well, it just means Hastings, Cogger, Brayley need to go up another gear. Gamble need to go up another gear. They need to find some attack off back of them, because what they try and do is they were trying to create the space for Kalen Ponga. Now they're going to have to create the attack themselves. And that's where I think they've lacked. And now, like you said, the threat is out wide when Ponga's out there. But who do they have next that's going to step in and be that player? Because I just don't think the Knights are going to be able to kick on for it. So, when we talk about pressure on coaches, and there's a lot of pressure in the NRL, and pressure shifts now to Adam O'Brien and how he can adapt their team into a style that helps them get wins. Because what are they, 2 wins? 2 wins, so they're doing it tough.
Another one is they've got a young kid in their reserve grade, a young English kid, Will Price.
Yes.
Yeah, the son of Leon Price, who's come across and he's been playing a lot of halfback, but played a bit of fullback and adapt to playing in both positions. Does Adam O'Brien take the punt and give the young fella a go at fullback? I'm not too sure.
Well, you have to. What's your... You know what I mean? I think it's... a lot of these teams that are struggling, they need to shake up what's going on at the moment and maybe try some things and put people into positions that's their positions, but try and find a way that they can get these wins, because I guess Parramatta's exactly the same. No Mitch Moses, they're looking for people to look to try and find them and get them into some wins, but it doesn't look good for the Newcastle Knights for sure.
Sweet. So we'll move on into some of the week's games. Well, all of the week's games. Starting off with the first one, which was the Storm versus the Roosters on Thursday night. And I want to start off by just talking quickly about one of the controversial moments in the game, which was when Jerome Hughes, he got a nice little grubber for himself going in goal. He gets knocked over. It goes dead. The Roosters get a 15-metre tap. Munster does something silly and gets sent off. You guys saw that. What is that the right call? The no call and then the sin bin, is that the right call in that situation? Yeah,
firstly, I just don't to be honest, both teams aren't at their best. But Storm are managing to get wins like they always do, is not play well, but also still collect those wins. Roosters are struggling to try and find some consistency with their performance. If we're talking about an incident, I think that's play on. Jerome Hughes puts a grubber through, and now I guess it's a hard one, because as a player, your reaction is to try and cut him off but today's day and age, you can kind of find a way to get through that and try and not give a penalty away. So I think that was the right call. It's not a penalty. They're going back towards the ball. They're shattering him back. I don't think they went off their line to try and block him. But then I think the incident from Munster, which was poor from him, and I think I heard Craig Bellamy talk about just saying it was a bit dumb and silly that you allow those things to go. Because I'm guessing they're blown up around the penalty, and which they do have a fair point. But at the same time, the ref says something. You just got to listen to the ref. You play to the whistle, you just got to keep moving on. So luckily, it didn't cost them the game because I think that was something that could be avoided. Very lucky they come away with a win. But my thoughts on the incident is it's not a penalty, play on. And Munster's incident was mostly a dumb thing for the standard and calibre of the player he is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a little bit of what we've been talking about already, the Roosters are going through, they haven't had any consistency in their spine. And that's hurting them. You know, they missed Sam Walker for a couple of weeks. Tedesco was out. So they haven't had a spine that's been able to find any continuity, which is hurting them in crucial moments. But on what you're talking about, yeah, I agree with Blairy. The grubber kick through, there wasn't a lot that the defenders could do. And, you know, you're never going to part the ways and just let them go. You're going to stand your ground. So that's what they did. And Munster, once he made that grab, the referee had no choice but to give that 10-minute sin bin. But probably a lesson for younger people watching the game is the referee's not going to change their mind. And especially at the level below, there's no captain's call. So the referee's not going to change. Just get on with the game. Get on with the game. Once the referee's decided, all right, ball's gone dead, it's tap 20, get back to the 30-metre line and defend your line. Because you're wasting energy, you're wasting time, and therefore they're down to 12 men.
Well, it's the reaction, eh? The reaction of moments in the game. And I guess they're at that high level, so they should be better at these things. They should understand how it works. They get told all the time. And you still get told it. I still tell the kids at younger grades now is that if you play to the whistle, you know what I mean? You play to the whistle. If the whistle doesn't go, you just keep playing. If they haven't seen something, you just keep going. So you can't argue with the refs. They're always going to be right. So I just think, you know, in those instances, you've just got to be prepared to move on real quickly and then what's your next job, which is get back to the 30 and get ready to defend. That was a bit of a brain snap, I thought, from Munster for sure.
And I don't know Cam Munster, but he does look like one of them cheeky fellas.
Cheeky fella. I was going to say that looks like a cheeky fella.
He's going to try those things and get away with it.
Do you think he was holding him back a little bit because he was hoping that the bunker might intervene and kind of overrule the decision?
Yeah, I think that's what he was trying to do. But the ref, like, you can't. There's no stoppage in that play because what they're trying to do is take a quick tap and roll on. So you can't afford it. But I just think it's just a dumb thing to
Petulant.
do. Yeah, it's like you're trying to play for something, but at the end of the day, it's not going to change the ref's mind.
Is that also a symptom of the Storm not being, you know, they have not dominated at all? They've been winning, they're second in the table, but I've got a stat here that their average margin per game this year is only 4.3 points, and their biggest margin was the 8-point victory over the Panthers in round 1. So every single game they've had is tied. Do you think maybe it's partially that? Like they're having to scrap every game. They're sort of like getting a bit silly maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of frustration in there too, you know. I think when teams don't get things going their way, sometimes you do things out of character, those kind of things. And yes, I guess the competition's tough, which is good because we've seen over the weekend that if you turn up, any team can win. So you have to turn up with your A game every week. But for me, it's like if you can win ugly and still not be at your best, and we're only coming into round 7 this weekend or round 8, then round 8. So they're okay. They're sitting in a good position. They're sitting second on the table without being the best that they can be. And there's a couple other teams like that as well. So you know they'll be comfortable where they are. Well, no, I'm not. So let me say that again. They wouldn't be comfortable where they are, but know that they're better than what they're performing on the field.
Yeah.
And that'll scare everyone in the comp. That they're not hitting their straps. Yet, what are they, third on the table?
Second
on the table. And I think I read a stat last week that with Munster coming back, Pappenhausen back, Grant and Jerome Hughes, last week I think was the first time that spine, I'm talking about halves and spines together, was the first time that spine had played together in something like 400 days, 400 weeks. Something like that, 400 days. You know, so an age for them, they're only going to get better. They're only going to get better. And, you know, they're just clawing wins at the moment, sneaking away with them. And that'll send the proverbial up the other teams because they know they've got to fight and they're only going to get better.
Just going back to, you said, both you guys said, the ref did a good job. Both those calls were good. I want to jump forward to later in the weekend, the Panthers versus the Tigers.
Oh, yes.
There was a couple of calls there, which maybe you guys don't feel well, calls or no calls that you don't feel the same about. There was the Aiden Caesar, similar to a tackle we saw a few weeks ago. Attempted charge down on Brad Schneider. And then there was also the Brad Schneider's revenge ankle tap on Justin Olam. What did you guys think of those for referee?
Yeah, there was some controversial calls in that one, I thought. The Olam one for sure, that's a professional foul, not a penalty, because you get I guess they were fair. I think this is why they gave it a penalty, because they didn't know, because he's still a fair way out from the try line, that he was definitely going to score the try. But I think they're close to the line. Even at 20 metres out, it's hard to stop Justin Olam the way he runs and the way he carries the ball. And he ankle tapped him. He caused him to fall over where he went to go past the ball and he fell on the ground. So that's a professional foul in my eyes. So that was controversial. And then obviously the kick pressure one, we've seen over the last couple of weeks, obviously, Lussick at the Warriors and then the Warriors again with Josh Aloiai. That's a penalty. You know what I mean? It's a penalty. So I guess the thing for me is, this is where the confusion comes in around the fans and watching the game. It's that 1 week it's a penalty and it's a final, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks in Lussick's case, and then it's just the on report and a fine. So how do we find some consistency around our calls? I guess they set the standard when they gave Lussick and Aloiai some time on the sidelines, but then now we're giving fines. It's hard as a former player watching the game, but I'm guessing it's just as hard for fans.
Yeah, and it's hard for coaches.
Yeah.
It's hard for a coach to instruct your players, because we're almost taking kick pressure out of the game, which is a huge part of it. And we're tinkering, and this is always my concern when we change rules and we start to protect players, is that we start to change the fabric of the game. And if we're taking kick pressure out of the game, which is likely going to happen now, then we're changing a big part of the game. We're making those halfbacks, that protected species that I mentioned last week, just get free kicks away. And you've already mentioned 4 of the kickers we've got in the game. They're dangerous without the kick pressure. With the kick pressure, give it without it. The advantage goes to that attacking team, and we're disadvantaging the defenders again with one little change. So I think the big one is consistency, that the game wants, the fans want, the players want, the coaches want consistency with the rulings, and we've seen a little bit of inconsistency the last couple of weeks with that. On the other one, with Brad Schneider, you've got to be 100%, or the referee needs to be 100% that it's going to be a try-scoring opportunity for it to be a penalty try. That wasn't 100%, but the chances were it could have been a try, and I thought it was a professional foul from Schneider. And you can hear the bunker referee saying that Schneider falls, but he's falling because he's diving at him. He's falling because he's intentionally sticking his hand out to trip him up, and professional foul was the call for me, and which is easy for me sitting back here and having a couple of days to stew it over. But yeah, I thought it should have been a professional foul at the least, and it took away what could have been a 100% try-scoring opportunity for the Tigers and increasing their lead.
How do you guys think we can get that consistency in calls, and get the referees on the same page that it seems like maybe they aren't? What is the solution to that? Yeah,
well, the one that hurts is when they come out Monday and say, that should have been, you know what I mean? That should have been this. Yeah. But it doesn't help the team in the moment. And I watched Benji Marshall's coach press conference after the game, and he was over the moon about, he was blowing up about that call, thinking it was a professional foul too, which we both agree that I think is a professional foul and he should be in the bin, because there's no winners out of that. And then when the NRL comes out Monday and says this is what it is, it's too late. You know what I mean? In the moment, our game's made up of moments. And that's a try scoring. The game was in the balance early there.
Yeah.
They were going all right, the West Tigers, and the Penrith Panthers were under a bit of pressure. They get that call, they get a man down. It's a game and the momentum changes, and West Tigers could be playing in front or even winning the game. You don't know, but as a coach, you'd know that that is frustrating, and it's frustrating that when the NRL comes out and says what they say about these moments in the game. How do we get it back? Man, they've got a hard job, the refs. It's so hard. How do you find consistency? Well, the consistency comes from the guys, the judiciary people as well, because they're making these calls and then the refs are just going off the back of some of the stuff that they're seeing and hearing. So it's really hard for a ref to make these decisions, because all they're doing is now is just going straight, leaving it to the judiciary to give them the answers for what's happening out there. So again, they do a great job at refereeing the games. They're under the microscope every single weekend. So it's really hard to find some consistency. But I think some of these, and I don't want to say it's common sense, because it's quite hard when things are going really fast on the field. It's really hard to try and make these calls. But I guess it's the outside noise that kind of controls what happens on the field.
Yeah, I think in the main, we get most things right.
Yeah.
And on the Monday, it's not helpful to Benji to get that call. But we do a pretty good job as a game in fixing it up and not repeating past mistakes with refereeing. But one thing I do like with rugby union is when their referees go to the TMO and the on-field referee has an opinion, he can have a say and he can have some dialogue with the bunker, with the third referee sitting up there.
Yep.
So, he can have some consistency with his call. Yeah, that is the way I saw it. I'm going to go this way. Because he's in charge. The on-field referee is the man in charge. And I think there's an element where he should be able to overrule the bunker. And the bunker is an opportunity not just for the guy sitting there to have a look, but for the on-field referee to have a review for himself too.
Because it is a bit different from other sports where the bunker can actually just outright give the ref the call that should be made. Whereas I know in rugby, I know you hate rugby, but in rugby, the referee's
Wrong show, bro.
The referee's decision is final in that. For TMO in rugby, they just replay and they say what they see, they tell the ref, and then the ref on the field still decides what the call is. So maybe it could be something around that. Anyways, we'll get off giving all the shtick to the refs because.
Wait, before we move on from that, how nice was it to see a bit of rugby league out in Bathurst? Have you played out there, boys?
No.
Have you ever played
Not in Bathurst, no. I played out Bush, but not out Bathurst.
No, haven't. But like for me in these games, it's an opportunity like that to be able to take our game out to those little areas that don't get much rugby league. I've played in Tamworth. And I think that was in the COVID period because for us it was a thank you for them looking after us because that's where we stayed in the COVID time, you know what I mean? And man, the fans turned up in their numbers there. So to be able to take games to these little country towns or these little towns outside of the city, and the fans love it and they get behind it. And it's great opportunities. Darwin, they're up in Darwin again. That's pretty cool. Like anywhere they can take a game that can hold NRL game, then I think go for it. But like us in New Zealand, when you take a Warriors game down to like Napier and all those kind of things, it's cool.
Speaking of a Warriors game, gotta be one of the worst.
I knew where you were going.
Times that you guys have had watching a game, definitely for you, Adam. The Dragons versus the Warriors. What the heck happened?
It was. For me, it was frustrating. No, actually, I wasn't frustrated because I'm not out there playing. For me, they took a couple of steps backwards because I felt like for me watching the games, they were building consistently into some quality performances and still being able to win games tough and ugly. And this one was 2 steps backwards. I heard Andrew Webster after the game. Their defence was poor. Their defence was poor. They lost the ruck. Their one-on-one stuff was poor. They were getting beaten up through the middle of the park, and that's the Warriors' strength. Their middles are their strength. My concern for the Warriors is what they have coming off the bench with the amount of NRL experience sitting on the sidelines injured. If you look at the Dragons bench, the Bellin, Blake Laurie came on. Mate, they were the big difference for the Dragons when they come on. They lift the energy, they lift the intensity, and that's the importance role of a bench player, is that whenever the team starts, wherever the energy is, you've got to even go meet it or go above, and that's what the Dragons did, and they just come after the Warriors. I thought, the first kickoff set, 60, nearly 65 metres off the first set, kicking a good ball kick, and then building pressure off the back of that, scored really early, and it looked really easy from a fan's point of view, that they were just getting that, Sean Johnson's try, it didn't look like there was much in it, a couple of bad reads from the Dragons, but the Dragons, what they did was they stayed strong in their systems defensively. They worked together and they built confidence on the back of their defence, and it just shows, defence wins games. But defence always breeds confidence and excitement around, hey, if we can stop a team like the Warriors that close to the line, we can create opportunities for ourselves. And that's what they did in that whole game. And, man, it was disappointing to see the Warriors take a step backwards defensively, because we know how good they are in attack. But, man, Sully was good. Sua, Ben Hunt, Lomax, killed the Warriors. We said it last week, man. He is most probably the form. I'm still going to say the form play in the comp right now. Right now, the form play in the comp, and the things he can do. He's athletic. We said that last time. He's athletic. He scores tries. Their first kickoff set in the second half. Again, they rolled the Warriors 65 metres, put an attacking kick up. He competes. He catches that ball. Boom, scores a try. The drop kick before half-time.
2
Man, that just gives the team confidence. And for someone that was under so much scrutiny at the start of the season and the back end of the season and through the preseason, he's come out, and I think he's top.
Through last week.
Yeah, through last week. I think he's top of the Daily M's, and deservedly so. He's done so good this year. Man, it's crazy. And they moved him to centre, and I thought, okay, well, he's not going to be in the game because in the wing he can roam. Mate, he was everywhere.
No.
He was everywhere. Sorry, Willie, I just said literally everything about the game, bro.
No, it was a big difference. I agree. They got off to an easy start, the Warriors, and even with that start, they were still in second gear.
Yeah.
They were cruising, and they never got out of second gear. And the Dragons, they decided to change gears, and I sort of different opinion to Blair. And hindsight's easy. On reflection, this game was coming. If Dallin doesn't score that try before halftime against Manly, the scoreline's very different, and I think the game's very different. And I don't think for that majority of that first half against Manly, they were very good. There were some signs in that they clawed themselves back, showed the resilience that they had last year, and what's made them the team that they are now. But there were some worrying signs in that Manly game that reared its head this week. Short turnaround this week. They've got to get things right, and agree. Loss of, this is where managing your cap and having your squad, because if you lose some of your big names and some of your big hitters, you've got to rely on some of those young fellas coming through, and puts a bit of pressure on them, and it can affect the impact that you have off the bench.
The Warriors dropped actually down to 10th now, and the Dragons have leapfrogged them to 9th. Oh. So that is pretty shocking considering where the Dragons were at the end of last season and where the Warriors were. When do the big questions start being asked by everyone of the Warriors? Because it's still not come around quite yet. Is there a time limit to this kind of patch of form that they're in right now?
Well, the thing is, rugby league's a special game, and every week gives you a new challenge, and that's why we love the game of rugby league, because one week you could lose like they have, and then they've got an opportunity the following week to try and fix that all up and go after it. And I guess for me, it's the NRL experience sitting on the sidelines. That's where they're gonna be really challenged. They'll be dirty on themselves because they would have known that they haven't been playing up to their standards and their quality that need to be at. My fear is that there's a couple of there's a few middles in there that are playing massive minutes, we're coming up to to the mid part of the competition. We're still early days yet, but have we dragged them out and played them too much minutes, and we don't have any backup on our bench at the minute because of the injuries? And as the season gets on, the legs are going to start coming up underneath them because they've just played big minutes. A lot of those middles are making 40-plus tackles every game and hitting the 150 metres every single game, and they're playing 60 to 65 minutes a game. So they're going to have to try and find a way that they can get some of these young guys or guys back on board to try and lift the standard up of where they're going. I don't think it's panic stations, but they really need to move really quickly on trying to put in some complete performances and fix up the wrongs and sort that out moving forward, because, a massive game coming up on Thursday for sure.
Just on what Blair is saying, I had big concerns last year with the minutes that Tohu was playing.
Yeah.
Huge minutes, and I probably manifested itself a little bit on the weekend against St George, where for the first time in a long time, on more than one occasion, he looked tired. He looked fatigued, and he'll never stop throwing himself around and putting himself in the picture and shirking his job. But he looked a lot more fatigued than normal, and I think that's one for the coaching staff to manage his minutes and his game time. But that big point in the season is coming this week against the winless Titans. On Thursday, that's a big game.
And they look like they've tidied up a few things too. And I guess I don't know if you go back in the history of Des Hasler and how his previous teams have started the year, quite similar to where the Titans are at the minute. And then they put in a performance like against the Seagulls. We know how good the Seagulls are. I think they going in the right direction. They're trying to build some consistency around what they can do. So yeah, like you said, man, a tough game coming up for the Warriors, and fingers
Bit of a trap
crossed.
game.
Foz is hitting some form, man.
Yeah,
Kieran Foran's hitting some
the
form.
old stager, he's getting them around, and I guess he's just playing to his strengths. You know what I mean? He's tough.
Yeah.
He's tough, and I think that builds some confidence around the guys around him as well. They played some great football the other night, and man, I thought Manu was just going to roll through them, and they scored really early, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, 2 tries. And I'm thinking this is going to be not good for the Titans, but they crawled themselves back into it on the back of Foran and put themselves in the pitch and just fell up short.
Tanner Boyd came back as well for that game after he'd been dropped, right, for a couple of weeks. He was the last man after Campbell's injury, and Sami isn't back yet. And he looked pretty good too, didn't he?
Well, what happens is that these guys that get left out of teams, they go away, they improve themselves. That's what you expect them to do. And they get another opportunity and they want to show them what they can do. So sometimes having a little bit of a kick up the bum because your form doesn't warrant being selected gives you an opportunity to go back in there and go, hey, I belong in this team and this is what I can do. And they did well.
I don't know if you saw it a couple of weeks ago. There was some footage in the dressing room of Desi losing it.
Yeah.
And I was talking about Desi spraying at halftime. They showed that old footage of him at Parramatta ripping the door down. But the footage of him with the Titans was him almost face to face with Tanner Boyd spraying him at halftime. And I think the kid's gone away and learned his lesson from that. He has. You got to go back, and such as the pressure in an NRL squad, whoever it is waiting to take your spot. So when you get dropped, to get back, you've got to prove your consistency and your worth again to the coach, and prove your value every day at training. Obviously, he's done that, and the next time you get a shot, you've got to make every post a win, and that's what he did against Manly and nearly helped them get the win.
Yeah, the Titans are got to be everyone's second favourite team now, like how the Warriors were last year. I mean, you just feel bad for them because especially how they've turned it around in the last 2 games and been so good, so much effort, and they've still lost. I'll be waiting for their first win because I'm sure it's coming sooner than later.
Hopefully not Thursday.
Yeah, actually, I don't think it is.
Maybe later.
You know, I'm not a Warriors fan, so I'm not going to...
Maybe back into the year.
No.
Someone else.
But just back to the Dragons for one sec before we move on. A guy who I haven't heard anyone talk about that much, even though I know he's a big name, is Ben Hunt.
Yeah.
He is leading the NRL in try assists he has 13, and the second most is 6. He's more than double the second most try assists. And no one's really said about how good he's playing at the moment.
Well, the thing is, Ben just does Ben Hunt things. He's tough. He's a competitor. And along with, obviously, Moses Sully, Jaden Sewer, and Lomax, he was the game changer for them. He put people into positions to give them those opportunities. His kicking game's second to none. He obviously gives confidence, and he's their leader around the field. So, again, leading at 13 try assists, like that's quality. A lot of his stuff is off kicks as well because he's really good at his kicking game. But he also builds confidence to the guys around him. So, you know, he's got to get credit. And the funny thing with Ben Hunt, when Origin starts coming around, and all these Queensland Origin players, you know, funny thing, when Origin comes or starts talking and comes into the picture, all these Queensland players start going up another gear. And he's a prime example of that. But he just goes about his work. That's what I like about Ben Hunt. He just goes about his work. Obviously, doesn't want any praises, but they all find another gear when it comes to, you know, coming around this Origin period time for sure.
12 months ago, all the talk was Ben Hunt wanting to get out of St George.
Yeah.
Didn't want to play under Shane Flanagan. They seem to have settled now and seem to have a really good relationship, and he looks really settled, comfortable in the leadership. Even in the times when the team wasn't playing so well, he never looked flustered. He looked like a leader that was in control of things. And, you know, the team heavily lean on him, and he's paying them back by taking a lot of heat off and putting 13 guys away for tries. And Blair said he's got an eye on Origin too. He's got an eye on that number 9 jersey for Queensland, no doubt. And he's been a superstar for Queensland in the last couple of series. And he want to get back in there, and any player, I suppose, that's still putting on the boots wants to be in that arena.
So his partner in crime, Zach Lomax at the Dragons, might be thinking maybe a little bit, oh, did I really just sign that contract? Because we'll move on to the next game, and it was fins up, wins up the Dolphins.
Go the Dolphins. Go the Dolphins.
Holy, did they smoke the Eels in that game. But before we get into the game, let's just chuck a bit of praise on a guy you've played with 26 times, Adam, Mr. Jesse Bromwich, first ever player to start 300 games at prop. That's
nice.
That's pretty impressive. So, have you got any stories about him, Adam? That
No, I don't have any stories, but you've got to give credit to credit when credit's due. To play 300 games, the only player in the NRL history to play 300 games in the one position, front row, which is definitely the toughest position in the game, where you just bash and run all day long. And then you've got to go through the grind of pre-season and then get up again every single year. And you can see, you know, Jesse's a competitor. He's come out of a really good system. And I guess the reason for going to the Dolphins was to try and build something special for that club, being the first time being in there. They're only 2 years into the competition, and alongside his brother, have been an integral part of the Melbourne Storm, but also 300 games in the middle of the park, man. Massive ups for him. I don't have any stories on Jesse because Jesse's quite a quiet dude as well. But again, because he comes with, I guess, that legacy of the Storm and Kiwis, a bit like James Fisher-Harris, they hold a lot of mana in when they speak, and that's what Jesse brings. He's consistent with his performance. You don't see too many off games with Jesse. He doesn't stop trying, but to do that through the middle of the park for 300 games, big ups to the bro.
Yeah, I had the fortune of being involved in 2016 with the Kiwis as an assistant coach, and Blair was one of the leaders with the side. And my takeaway as a coach was, what opened my eyes was seeing there was no coincidence why Melbourne and Brisbane were where they were when the likes of the Melbourne guys in our team, Jesse Bromwich and Blair at the Broncos, trained at a different intensity to everybody else. You know, they had a standard that people talked about achieving and attaining, but these guys at the successful clubs lived every single day. And there's no doubt that he's done that throughout his career, Jesse Bromwich, every single day to get where he's at. And 1907, I think the game started, so whatever, 116 years of the game, the only front rower, the only prop ever to achieve 300 starts is incredible. That's an incredible record for anybody. And to do it when the game is as tough as it is, you know, and do it for as long as he's done it and be as successful as he's been, is a true credit to a champion of our game.
And what a game it was for his 300th with that massive blowout, man. Well, what's happening with the Eels? The Eels have just completely... They're nothing like what they were last year, and especially 2 years ago when they were in the grand final as well. That without Mitch Moses, maybe, or is it something else, coaching? What's happening with the Eels right now?
Well, I think you got to give credit to the Dolphins. Down a few key players, Hammer, Farnworth, Flegler. I think they actually had to get exemption for one of their players to come in who was outside of the 30 to come and play their game. So they turned up with an attitude to go after the Eels, and that's what it is in that game. Is if you turn up to go after a team, this is what you can create. And man, they turned it on. Trey Fuller, awesome. Isaiah Katoa, bro, he is developing and coming along really well as a young half, and he's got some skill, he's got some talent, he's tough. He's doing things really well, along with Cody helping him out and guiding him along, and also Jesse Bromwich through the middle of the park, and the guys around him. So when they get their team back, man, I thought they would be the surprise packet this year in the 8, competing for the time at the end. I don't think they'll go all the way, but I definitely think they're a chance of playing in the 8. Para under some stress now. I think big talks a couple of weeks ago that coach might be losing the job, and Wayne Bennett sitting in the background waiting for something to happen. I think they're in a lot of strife around what they want to achieve without Mitch Moses. Do they change up their spine? Do they change players and put them where they need to be? I think Clint Gutherson needs to... He looks like he's got his 2 knees strapped. He looks like Tohu Harris at the moment, that they just keep turning up and running. But I think playing fullback, maybe moving him closer to the ball and being that guy on the ball and just feeding the people around him. So there's some opportunities now that I think the Eels need to have a bit of a shake-up and maybe taking him out of fullback and putting the young fella back at the back and seeing how they go there.
Yeah, there's some alarming signs, no doubt, at the Eels at the moment. And it's easy to pinpoint Mitchell Moses' absence as the main key, but they're just not firing. Just not firing at all. And I think across the board, Brad Arthur's trying to tinker and had a young fella in the halves, and he brings Dejan Arce back and leaves Mike Acevo out. And do they need him back in there? Because he's tried and proven. I'm not sure. But yeah, the Dolphins were outstanding. And the other one I thought was very, very good and has been outstanding for them is Jeremy Marshall-King.
Right.
Been great out of dummy half and such a threat, and come on the last 2 or 3 years so much as a player. And most of that has been under Wayne Bennett and his guidance. He's done a great job with Jeremy Marshall-King, and he's grown into a real elite dummy half for them, which is going to be great for the Kiwis. And great for the Dolphins going forward. But credit to both teams. I think credit to both teams to go to Darwin, and what they said was 32-degree heat and 70% humidity. That is crazy. And they're coming into the middle of winter. So the NRL trying to expand the game, and I understand that, and great, good on them for doing that. We've got to take it out. And some of those guys will never get to an NRL game, so we've got to take it to them. But geez, that was hard going in those conditions. You could see 5-10 minutes into the game, the jerseys looked soaked and heavy, and tough conditions for both teams to play. And so full credit to both of them.
Just back to Jeremy Marshall-King, and you said he's picking up this good form for the Kiwis. Brandon Smith has had some pretty good form for a less successful side to start the season. It may be a bit early now, but at the moment, who do you reckon would be the Kiwis starting hook out of those two?
Well, I think like you said, although the Roosters haven't been too successful, the games that they have won, he's been a key standout for them. And I think what he does really well is obviously his running from dummy half. The difference between Jeremy Marshall-King and him is Jeremy Marshall-King is a bit more of a creator around the 9. And Brandon Smith is, when there's a quick play the ball, Brandon Smith is hard to stop. The hindsight would be awesome if we had a Anzac test. There it is, you know what I mean? Then you start speaking about who's the informed 9 right now. And this is a tough one for me. I think, it all depends on the coaching style and how you want to play football. But I think right now, I would say Jeremy Marshall-King's in the hot seat. I think what he can do to create the spaces for the bigger bodies that the Kiwis have, I think he's great. If you want to play a crash and bang style, then that's when you head over to Brandon Smith. So, I think successfully at the minute, I think the Dolphins are doing really well, and it's come off the back of some of what he's doing around the middle of the park. Also, obviously, the Roosters are doing it tough, and they've had a couple of good wins where Brandon's been a standout. But I think consistently, Jeremy Marshall-King's been the one for me.
There was a couple of seasons ago when Melbourne had some injuries to their front row stocks, and they played Brandon at prop. And he was outstanding. Put him at 8, 10, 13, and his game didn't change. And it showed to me just how tough he was. Give me the ball, I'll take you on. Run at me, I'll smash you. But it also showed he's got some versatility. So I'd probably go Jeremy Marshall-King to start and Brandon off the bench.
14.
Because he can cover and be that 14 man. But it's taken him a year. It's taken him a good year to adjust. One, leaving Melbourne, but also get used to the Roosters system and working under Trent Robinson and being in Sydney. And it's a big, big change for him. And you're in a bit of a fishbowl in Sydney. It's a lot different to being in Melbourne and a lot of pressure being at a club like the Roosters. So it's taken him a little while to come to terms with all of that. And it looks like he finally has done a lot better this year.
Yeah, I definitely think he can fit into that 14 role for the Kiwis. And if you get an injury, just say beforehand, then obviously he just slips straight into that 9 position. So, what he can do for the role coming off the bench, similar to what you said, he can cover any middle position. And that's kind of where the game's going anyway. You don't have to be your traditional front rower anymore.
No.
And look, the only thing that changes for a front rower is you got to take the kickoffs. Otherwise, every other part of the game, your back five's carrying the ball out of the back half. You may get a couple of touches in there, but when there's momentum, with his footwork and his toughness around the ruck, perfect to just be ducking in behind there. So, yeah, like we both said, I think that's where I think they fit both right now at this minute.
We'll move on to just some quick fires because I wanted to talk about the Dolphins because I'm a massive Dolphins fan. But these other hidings that occurred on Saturday night and Sunday, I think we can probably just go through them pretty quick because starting off with the Broncos and the Raiders, Reece Walsh is back, and he's back. They were too good for the Raiders, and Chevy Stewart got a bit of a rude awakening for the young kid. So Broncos favourites for the premiership again?
They're definitely coming into some form on the back of Reece Walsh, and that's where they created it all last year for them as well. No Payne Haas still, but I think the guys that have filled in for them, man, they've got some depth there, especially in the middle of the park. So along with Reece Walsh and still having Reynolds on the sidelines, I think they are most probably the team to beat right now. They showed their class the other night against the Raiders, and they're tough, they're fast, and that's you can't coach speed. And the way that they play the game of rugby league is at that high intensity consistently for 80 minutes on the back of Reece Walsh's speed and his the way that he runs those lines. It's electric. He's hard to handle, but he's in everything. So the Broncos for me, right now, they're the premiership favourites for me. The way that they're playing.
Yeah, probably second for me, just behind the Sharks. Sharks at the moment are the form team out of everyone. But the Broncos were my early season pick to win it, and probably still there or thereabouts. But at this moment in time, probably the Sharks for me. But 2 mentions for the Broncos for mine is Pat Carrigan and how he's really stepped up into in the absence of Payne Haas and the loss of Flegler. He's really put the team on his back and his numbers are crazy, meterage-wise. The other one is Jack Madden. I thought he was great stepping in for Josh Reynolds. And when you do that, you just got to do your job.
He means Adam Reynolds, not Josh. And it's Josh, not Jack. Sorry to my bro. You know what I mean? Sorry for my bro. But, hey, we good. We got you. We got you.
You got me. Jack Madden. Jock Madden from the Tigers.
We got you, my bro.
Got in there. I thought if you step up into that spot with the pressure on, you got to do your best. And, Adam Reynolds isn't too far away. So you just got to keep doing his bit.
I think if you look up workhorse in the dictionary, it just shows Patrick Carrigan underneath, and that's the only definition.
He's got a bit of a hairstyle like a horse too.
Yeah.
The mane.
He's got a mane. He's got a mane.
It's beautiful.
That's what hairstyle like a horse. What was I thinking? He got a mane.
Nice flowing locks.
Nice,
He'll be great again for Queensland as well. Next quickfire one, Knights versus Bulldogs. The Bulldogs got their revenge from that whooping they got last year. The only talking point I have from that one was the Hetherington versus Marnie thing that happened at the end of the game. What's going on there?
Hey, before we talk about that, I think you got to give big ups to Bronson Sherry. I think, like we spoke about him last week and his involvement in the game. He's been out of the game for so long, but we spoke about that edge and how critical they are and how lethal they've been. He's carrying the ball like he hasn't left now. I think he's getting some consistency, a bit of belief, a bit of confidence in himself. Who would have thought? If you look over and I think I've already spoke about this, about having no one really in their 7 position, but they've managed to work out what works for them. And obviously, Viliami Kikau's been a big part of their success as well, but their left edge has been dangerous. The Fox is killing it. So, man, they've got to get credit's due. I think they've gotten some consistent performance. They know what it looks like for them when they're winning. They've backed themselves defensively, and I'm guessing the coaches worked really hard. They've got a system there that works for them, and they're backing themselves. So credit to those guys, man. Hetherington, he's a bit of a loose cannon. I reckon he's a bit of a loose cannon. You see it in his eyes. Maybe you should have just gave him a hiding on the field. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Bring the biff back.
Well, he's tried to.
Well, he come out of the dressing room, so give him a little push and shove. You might as well sort it out on the field.
They might not have taken it away if you didn't have your little biff.
Maybe it was because of me, eh? Now we good.
No, full congrats to the Dogs. Huge congrats to them. That's been coming for a little bit. It's been coming, that win. They were unlucky last week, pipped at the end. But they're finding their synergy. They're finding their connections. And Cameron Serraldo's worked hard to get things going there. So it's nice to see them pick up a win. But those scenes at halftime are ridiculous. Trying to shape up and trying to do a Muhammad Ali in the tunnel.
The thing for me,
it's a bad look.
Yeah, he walked out. So he's obviously been watching the game, and he saw him coming, and so he's walked out of the dressing rooms to try and push him, and like he was serious. He wasn't mucking around.
No.
Like you don't come out of the dressing room to try and push someone, and bro, it's a 9. It's hooker. Well, come on, bro. Take on someone your own size.
There's about a foot difference between them.
Surely Reed Marnie's not that annoying.
He's a cheeky fella, though. Like most hookers, man. Most hookers these days, they are cheeky fellas, and they borderline, rack you up. And I'm guessing they know the people to pick on. And Hetherington is one of those guys that if you get under his skin, that's what you get a reaction from, and that's what he do, and that's what like the good hookers have done in the past.
And there's a little bit, and we spoke about it before we came on, because we've taken away the biff and we've taken away the punch, some of those cheeky fellas have come right into their own now because they know they're not going to get a slap. There's a little bit where I think you got to put it on someone's chin if they're cheeky too much, Some of them get away with it. There's some guys that mouth off or push and shove and they step back knowing then nothing's going to happen. There's no repercussions.
I think he deserves to be a little bit cheeky, though. He leads the NRL in tackles,
Penalties too. I think he's got the most. I think he's got the most. I heard the stat. He's got most penalties in the competition.
Oh, well, there you
So
go.
he's Borderline grub.
Oh,
Actually, that's a bit rich coming from me. Yeah. Sorry, my guys.
it didn't look like he was going to step away from it either. Like it looked like he was up for it.
He's a competitor.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
a competitor. That's what makes the difference sometimes with some of those guys. They live life on the edge and they go after every moment and they compete, and that's what he does really well. So, yeah.
Last quick fire one. The Sharks took advantage of the all those holes that people have been seeing in the Cowboys. They just put on full display. The stat I have here for you is
Here we go.
that the Cowboys only managed to beat the Sharks in 2 stat categories: dummy passes and
Dummy half passes?
Yeah, they did more. No,
Just
dummy
dummies.
passes. They did more dummies.
Okay.
And they had less ruck infringements. And every other stat the Sharks did better in, which, I mean, that's just a tale of that game. Cause
So they pretty much just blew him off the park, which obviously the score tells the story. So I think, they are mostly, they're going under the radar, I reckon. Like, no one's really talking about them. I think they had a bye in there too, and they come back from a bye. And they've got a quality side. They've got players all over there that can do a job. Obviously, again, there's New South Wales spots up for grabs. Nico Hines, there's big talk around, is he going to be the 6th for New South Wales? So they're all coming into some bit of form, which is typical around this origin period. But, man, throughout their team, there were some milestones as well. Braden Hamlin-Uele back, playing his games. But also, they've got some talent through there, tough. They play a tough game of football, and I know that when they played the Warriors, that's how they played against them. They stayed in the game because they were just tough and resilient, and that's how they're playing. Obviously exposed the Cowboys on some weaknesses and found some holes and found some opportunities, and you can't give the Sharks any sniff because they'll do that, what they did to the Cowboys.
No, they've been very, very good. Trindle and Hines are outstanding, their combination. And Trindle going back to the All-Star game.
Yeah, definitely.
Really started the season well and just carrying that form on. And they're just feeding those 2 big threats they've got on the wings and on the edges. And they're unstoppable, Katoa and Mulatalo. So I can see those guys scoring more and more tries with their halves inside being on form. The worrying sign for the Cowboys is they're not missing many.
Yeah.
They're pretty much at full strength and they're playing like that, which will be alarming. And Todd Payton's come out this week and saying that it might be time for him to wield the axe. And time will tell. We'll know this afternoon whether he's been able to follow up on that. But they're still around near the top, aren't they?
Yeah.
The Cowboys are 4th or 5th,
yeah, I think they're in 5th, yeah.
which is surprising. But as we saw with the Warriors, you can drop a couple of pegs with 1 loss.
Absolutely. Just the Sharks, Fitzgibbon made a big decision, which I saw there was a lot of disagreement with when he put Sifa Talakai to the bench to now have Kyle Ero as the starter, and he's looked pretty mean. So he made this massive decision and it's paid off. Last year he had some decisions, I think I remember, where he made big decisions that didn't work and it ended up costing the Sharks. Their season went down the drain. Could this be now the Sharks' year? I know you said they're up there as your favourite. Are the Sharks up there with, the Broncos, the Panthers? Are they really that good?
Oh, well, they're definitely up there with those top teams for sure, and they're in consideration. It is a long time away, and there's still a long way to go in the competition. But as a coach, those are the tough decisions you have to make sometimes. You do that sometimes to get a reaction. Seth Talakai is a quality player. He's been playing centre, can play also back row. But, man, he made a decision. He stuck with the decision. I think it worked for them. I think he was strong on the weekend. But, bringing him off the bench is also an impact that you need as well from a player like him. So you're not missing much. And Carl was really good in quality. I think he got big metres, 160 or 80 something metres, which was strong. I think maybe how many games did he play? Maybe 2.
I think, 2 this year.
2 games this year, and he's right in the mix. He's been strong.
And full credit to him too. Kyle Ira, he's waited his time out. He's done his time in the New South Wales Cup, and I know, I won't say he got impatient, but he was really hungry and felt like he deserved more of a crack. There were some whispers early in the season that he may have gone to Super League, but he's decided to stay, and that persistence and that patience is paying off now. And he's really taken his opportunity the last 2 weeks, and his performances alone are keeping a great centre, a New South Wales centre, on the bench and Sifa Talakai. So, yeah, it's up to the young fella now that he's got that chance to keep making every post a winner and try and stay there, especially while the team's flying high.
Strong bloodline.
Real strong. Yeah, son of Kevin and nephew of Tony. So, yeah, he's got a fair bit to live up to. No pressure, kid.
Just before we finish up with this week's games, the Cowboys and the Raiders were both pretty high up the table before this game, and they've both been absolutely smoked. And then also the Knights and the Bulldogs were together down at the bottom of the table, and yet they also had a blowout. I just want to ask if these blowouts are just a coincidence, or is it like what is causing teams that have started up high to just get absolutely destroyed? Is it just early season jitters, too early for the table to be set? How come there's all these blowouts early in the year?
Well, I think for those teams that are up high, you start with your full strength team. And if you start having some key injuries to key components or key players in your team, that's when you're trying to build that consistency back up, and you're trying to find people that can fill those voids. Obviously, Parramatta, for example, they haven't been able to find someone to fill Mitch Moses' shoes. So I guess consistency around team selections is the key to success in the NRL. Obviously, you've got to win games as well, but you've got to defend well. And if you're having a lot of shifting parts or bodies, moving in and out of positions, injuries to key players and NRL experiences, as we're seeing with the Warriors as well, that this is where it starts hurting them. Most probably the saving grace for a lot of these teams, it's only early days. But they've got to get these players back on, because consistency helps with performance and culture and excitement and enjoyment in what you do, because losing all the time isn't fun. You're walking around on eggshells, you're trying to lift the energy, all those kind of things. So I just think key injuries to key players that have fallen out of these teams that were at the top, and some of these teams below them have just chipped away in the back of the scenes, where no one's given them any chances, but they're getting these little wins on their journey, and some of them have been close, like the Bulldogs should have beat the Melbourne Storm, you know what I mean, but then got the result against the Knights. So these things, I think, is a big part of success in the NRL.
Yeah, injuries, form, recruitment, salary cap management, all go to it into having a successful season. You know, if you invest heavily in a couple of players in your squad and you lose those, what are you bringing up? What's coming through? You know, what's the rest of your cap going on? What type of quality? And that's really important. Form's a big one for me. You know, the Knights and a couple of other teams tried to change their halfbacks. You know, they thought that changing the spine would be the answer. But for South Sydney, it's been about form. Lachlan Ilias wasn't playing anywhere close to what he has been. So Jason Demetriou's decided to drop him back and bring another fella up. So there's loads of things that go into it, and confidence is a huge one. Confidence when, even with the Dogs, because you're there or thereabouts, you're still quite confident. You're dented a little bit because you're losing, but the belief is still there. That first win is coming, and show a bit of fight, and sure enough, it comes.
Yeah, it can be, you know, not annoying, but a blowout can just be like, oh, by the second half, you're like, oh. But if there's one team that you can be guaranteed to be watching if you don't like blowouts, it's the Storm, as I said before. Anyway, so that was all the games of the weekend. But before we leave, and I don't want to steal your whole flow, Adam, but before we leave, I just want to preview next week / on Thursday, it is Anzac Day.
Yeah.
Us as New Zealanders and Australians, that's a big day for us. And there are 3 games on that day, which are the Warriors versus Titans, as you guys said, the Dragons versus the Roosters, and the Storm versus the Rabbitohs. And I didn't know the history of Anzac Day in league because I'm a fairly new leaguey. So let me just give you guys, which you guys already know this, but just a history lesson on the Warriors versus Storm Melbourne Anzac Day game, which has been played in Melbourne every year since 2009, except for 2015 when the Warriors played the Titans in New Zealand, and then in 2020 because of COVID. So that game is a massive game, but it is not happening, obviously. Adam, you would know a lot about that game because you played in the first game, that first one in 2009. You played 6 Anzac Day games in total, 3 for the Storm, 2 for the Warriors, 1 for the Tigers. And you actually scored a try for both the Storm and the Warriors against each other.
Two of my 12 tries in my career. Not many. Not many. I think what I'm disappointed about before we started talking about the Anzac game itself is that we don't get to play the Melbourne Storm in New Zealand. And we've changed and gone to, because I feel like that was tradition for a long time, since 2009. Obviously, the other traditional game is the Roosters Dragons, who have done it for so long now. And everyone knows on Anzac Day and Rugby League that those two teams are playing, and also the Melbourne Storm. But they've gone to play the Gold Coast Titans, and the Storm go play the Rabbitohs, who have a strong rivalry anyway. But for me, it's the disappointment of giving the Warriors an opportunity to showcase what they can do here in New Zealand. And I don't think the Storm were open to shifting a game to New Zealand, which is why they've moved. But again, an opportunity for the Warriors to do what they do really well with how they do things at the minute and how they've been doing things. Playing on Anzac Day is an important day for not rugby league, but the people that went out and fought for us to be here today, both Australia and New Zealand. So I guess for those games, it's how do you find within the game the Anzac spirit? That's kind of how we kind of speak about it. So the Anzac spirit in rugby league terms is, for me, is never giving up on every moment. It's going to that next level. It's taking on the opportunities. It's competing at the highest level. It's bringing the contact. It's running hard. It's all these little moments in the game that take effort, not actually talent. And that's what kind of the Anzac spirit to me in rugby league is, which is a tradition when it comes to rugby league. That's what we do normally, but it goes up another gear. It's an awesome opportunity to commemorate the people that have gone before us and fought for us, but it's also an opportunity for both teams to show Anzac spirit. And these medals that get given out, and that's what the medals are supposed to be for. It's who can show, I guess, the Anzac spirit in how we perceive in rugby league terms is the Anzac spirit. So disappointing that we don't keep the tradition of Melbourne and Warriors. That's okay. The game moves on, like always, and they get to play the Gold Coast Titans on Thursday, and hoping for an awesome day. I know it's another sellout. Man, the Warriors are doing something special here in New Zealand. Every game that they have back home is a sold-out crowd. And it is Anzac Day, so everyone will be there. And it's a great opportunity to go out there and get there, prove that last week was just a blip, and they come up and put a performance on that quality up against a Titans team that have kind of found something in the last week.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of Blair's sentiments. It's a day to recognise and celebrate, I suppose, those that went before us and put their lives on the line for us to be where we are today. And some of those people were very, very young men and women, and made all sorts of different sacrifices for us to be here. And we get to put on the game and a spectacle in celebration of that. And I'm very proud of our game, that we keep evolving. We want to keep getting better and progressing, but I'm also a traditionalist as well, and I'd love to see that Melbourne Storm Warriors game be the game for the Warriors, just like the Roosters Dragons. This be the game every single year, and who knows, at some stage Blair's young fella may play in the game. We look back and he follows that legacy. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully this is just a blip, and go back to the Melbourne Warriors Anzac Day games, but bring it back, but then alternate. So
Yeah, that
all
seems
the
pretty
ex-soldiers
petty.
and servicemen get to march out at a Warriors home game. All the Kiwis get to do that here. You know, just like the Aussies would have got to do when it's in Melbourne. So, yeah, we'll celebrate it well on Thursday, no doubt again.
Just before, one more thing before we head off home. Last week we talked about, obviously, your coaching in the Fox Memorial. So how did the final game of qualifiers go?
Yeah, it was a tough one for us. We had to go to Bayroscal and we came up against a team who even in the pouring rain were willing to throw the ball around and played some really expansive, great footy. And full credit to Bayroscal. They were a lot better than us on Saturday afternoon, and they taught us a few lessons. So we thankfully we qualified. On the back of that, we qualified for the Fox. So we go through from our group. Northcote, unfortunately, they're the ones to go back into the Sharman. I think the 4 teams to go back to the Sharman are Ponsonby, Northcote, Mangere East, and
Hibiscus.
Hibiscus Coast. They were the last team. So those 4 teams drop back and the other 8 go through. So
Any surprise packages? Otara, I see Otara got in.
Otara got through.
Yep.
Otara went through. And so congratulations to Dave Fartlongo.
Is he coaching out there?
Coaching out
Awesome.
there on his side. I think rumours, can't be 100% sure, but I've heard Manu Vatuvei is having a run around for them.
Oh,
no.
Wow.
So, yeah, I will hopefully come
Off the
across them
back
this
fence.
season. Yeah. So, yeah, good luck to them, and to all the defenders trying to tackle Manu this year.
wow.
So, yeah, they've got through. They were the ones who were in the Sharman last year,
Yes.
but they'll be playing in the Fox this year.
And I guess the cut-off stopped. No
For-
one can jump into any other teams now, or we had the conversation about people jumping
Well, I
around.
think they can. It depends on whether clubs have got.
Who did you pick up?
We haven't picked up any of them yet. Yeah.
Are you still waiting for some
Yeah,
boys?
We're seeing what's out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's we don't know if that's all cut off yet. So
No, teams have got 3 transfer spots, and most of them have filled 2,
okay.
I think. So it's whether they've got a spot open or not.
Oh, so previously anyone could jump over. So, but now there's only 3 transfer spots.
Throughout pre-season, yeah.
Okay.
So some of them have already transferred a couple
Yep.
during the pre-season period. So now players needed to think about that. But yeah, no doubt there may be 1 or 2 that
Yeah.
make
There's
that
got to
jump.
be some gutted teams that thought they were going to get Manu Vatuvei.
Surely, what do you reckon they paid him to go out there?
Do we need to pass the hat around for a couple of players?
Koha.
For Maris,
Willie,
yeah,
for
please.
Maris.
Yeah, please.
Hey,
Yeah.
what do you need?
Need 2 hats. We need 1 for the team, 1 for the clubhouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome, whānau. Thank you very much for tuning in. Check us out on all social media channels, YouTube, Instagram, my page, wherever. Just find us and check us out.
Yo.
See you again soon.